Hi, Steph. How are you? Welcome to Awaken
Hi,
Mine.
how are you?
I just literally met you twice and I already called you Steph. Is that okay?
Yes, it's fine.
I jumped to the nickname already. So I met Steph at a hot pot dinner for the Lunar New Year,
Yes.
and we were sitting at the same table and we went around the table talking about our big three, our businesses, and I asked the inappropriate question of what kind of Asian are you? And so do you want to share your big three if you know it and your business, kind of like tying into your origin story for us?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Stephanie, and my big three are um Leo, double Sag.
Wow. That's
So
a
a lot of fire.
yeah.
It is a lot of fire all the time. And I'm the year of the dragon,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just like it's very intense.
Mm, yeah. And you're Korean American as well.
Yes, yes, which makes it ultra intense.
I was gonna say, I think that's where we bonded because I was like, oh, she gets the rage.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a little bit of rage, like a bit chaotic,
Hmm.
but I kind of like it. Like, I know it sounds weird, like, but I kind of like it. Like, I don't know. It brings me like a sense of safety, I guess.
Yeah. I was just telling my astrology friends yesterday that I'm an Aries, and I also have like Sagittarius placements. But I was like, I feel like Aries are the best, but the worst at the same time, but the worst in the
Mm.
best ways.
I love Aries. I love Aries. I get along so well with Aries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're really direct and very to the point, which not a lot of people like
Mm.
that. So I guess it's the temperament that you're going for. But we want to learn more about you before we get into the questions. What's
Yes.
your origin story? Like, where did you grow up? What were your dreams?
So I grew up in New Jersey. Um, I grew up in a Korean American household and by immigrant parents. And of course, I was raised like every other Korean American kid to reach for the Ivy League and that ultimate professional career. And that's what I tried to do through most of my life because I thought that those things would bring me happiness. And a lot of it is attached to like reaching one's optimal financial success as well. Um, so I started my career in finance and private wealth for 2.5 years. And then in my mid 20s, which was like a crazy, just like a crazy time in my life. Like I feel like I was borderline depressed, like just didn't know who I was, what I wanted. I was just going through so many changes, like career wise, like personality wise, um, changing friendship groups, like all of these things, like really trying to find myself. And then I moved to Hong Kong after I quit my job in finance. And when I was little, I always did want to work in fashion because I grew up with a mother who was a fashion designer. So, but I was kind of raised in the sense of like my parents were always like, well, we want you to do better than us. So we don't want you to like be in the same line of work as us. But I just am not just not made for corporate America.
Mhm.
Just not. I just it works for some people. Like
Does it though?
I don't know. Like I don't want to judge so harshly, but like oh, like maybe it does. I don't know. I just feel like for me it was I'm too like I think that especially working in finance, like people who are successful in finance, like you really need to love money and invisible, like just numbers on a screen. Like you have to be super duper like number um oriented, driven. And I thought that was the person that I was. And working in finance showed me that that's what I wasn't. Um, so I moved to Hong Kong and I started a private label and production company. My parents and my family, they were also living in Hong Kong and in a similar line of work. And basically, I would go to big retailers like Nordstrom and Macy's, and I would work with their private label divisions. So they would look for rather than them hiring internal design teams, they would look for people like me, and I'd be like, well, I can design um and give you a full collection of dresses, outerwear, whatever it is that you need. And you can put your label on it, and I'll deliver it to you on this date at this budget.
Mhm.
Working with big box retailers is incredibly demanding, um, and incredibly taxing. Like their demands are they have like all the power, right? Because they have the ability to buy. So when COVID hit, these big box retailers, they literally canceled all their orders within 1 week. Um, and I literally lost my business within a span of 2 weeks. So I mean, looking back on it, it was so devastating, and obviously, like so many people lost their lives, and it was a horrible thing, right? But like in retrospect, if you look back, it was an opportunity for everyone to kind of just like be still, um, like take in that stillness and take stock of what we have and like who we are. Um, and so I took the necessary pause that I needed to, um, and just like have that introspective moment for myself. Um, and I always did love working in fashion, but what I was doing prior, I wasn't really like expressing my creativity. I wasn't like, because I was basically creating these collections for someone else. Um, so then when the time came for me to start over, I was like, I'm going to do it different this time. And because I'm a different person. And like I've done so much inner work, and I know that I want to put forth something that comes from my core. Um, but also something that is a sustainable business to like live off of and also like practical, right? Um, so that is when I came up with Find Me Now. And I started in my apartment with nothing, with no startup capital. just bootstrapping it. And it's been a wild ride so far. It's been a wild ride. It's been a blessing. Um, and I've learned so much about myself um, coming into entrepreneurship. Um, I think that I always felt that even when I was working in finance, that what I meant to do, what I am really meant to do is be an entrepreneur. Because there are like no bounds and like there's no boundaries um in how far I would like to go. I think that one of the biggest areas of growth um that I've experienced from my prior business to now is just like an overall sense of wisdom. I think that going into entrepreneurship, I was like super gung ho. I was like, I need to make $10 million in the first, like just super duper gung ho. And like that sense of like bold fearlessness, like there's nothing to lose kind of thing. I think that as a young person, inexperienced, just that's like just naturally where um my mental state was. Um, but with experience, I just think that there's like an overall sense of wisdom and like a sense of confidence. I feel like in my 20s, I was struggling so much with like who I was and like insecurities and just unsure of like what direction to go in because I was just so unsure of like the internal.
And your mom is a co-founder, right? Does she also
Yes,
design?
yes, she does.
I love that. So when the time when you decided to quit your finance job to then moving to Hong Kong and doing the private label, did you go to design school during that time or how did you make that?
No, so I didn't go to design school. So I was working alongside my mom. So I would use her resources in terms of like product and suppliers and manufacturers, and I was carrying the business side, maintaining the clients and like front facing.
Mhm. Amazing. And I love that your mom and you are doing this together. Something about that felt very healing to me. Like, even when I watch your videos with your mom in it, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this is breaking some generational curses in your lineage or something.
Oh my God, definitely. Um, I think that like it's so funny. My mom and I have both really done so much inner work the past like 10, 15 years. And I mean like really, really deep though the past like 6 to 7 years. And she has fully converted to Buddhism.
Mm,
And like she has fully come into the realization of herself as well. And I don't think that I would have been able to do this if she wasn't also on like her own healing journey.
mhm,
Um, I see the relationship that she has with her mother, and that relationship is just so like traditional.
mhm.
Um, and it's it's a little bit more like enclosed, if you will, because that mindset of my grandmother is just like not one that is easily relatable. So I think that like, and also like my mom is definitely not perfect, but like she's aware, like there is a level of awareness that's so important to like the first step of changing.
Right.
Um, Whereas like, because you can't force someone to be aware. Um, they either are or aren't. And I think that I have done a lot of work to unlearn a lot of the old mindsets and the limiting beliefs that I was raised by, that like raised me to be the person that I am. And it's just taking me and also her a lot of time to unlearn those narratives and like just truly, truly know that like they no longer serve us.
And what prompted this? Like, because it seems like you and your mom were going through it at the same time, or at least a phase of it during the same time. And like you said, you can't force somebody to wake up and work on
Right.
themselves. But in your case, it sounds like it worked out for you because now you can work with your mom and kind of be on the same page. Whereas, um, there's some family members who I don't know if they'll ever wake up in this lifetime or work on themselves in
Mm.
this lifetime. And maybe that's not their journey, but then it kind of does inhibit the closeness, the intimacy.
Yeah, connection. Yeah. So I would definitely say that like the loss that we faced during COVID, that sense of loss was necessary in order to grow.
Mhm.
My mom was also going through um a very difficult divorce during that time as well. And like it definitely wasn't an overnight thing where she just like woke up one day and was like, "Oh, I'm awake now." But I think that when you get to a point where like there's no escape and you just kind of lose everything, then you can choose, right? Like I'm either gonna stay and like wallow in my sorrows, or I'm gonna like look to this other option and maybe go down this path. Like I don't know what it is, but like I don't have another option kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah. And the willingness to see it that way as like a developmental perspective versus like, why is this happening to me? Even though at first
The
you,
why is this happening to me definitely was like part of it. It was definitely like the immediate reaction, right? And then you learn like, okay, this is not really working out. Like this reactionary behavior is like not serving me. And I actually don't have any more time to
yeah.
be applying this energy to this problem.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm literally running out of time kind of thing. So like I'm either going to choose like to use fear to like to be led by fear or to be led by light. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. What were one of the things that you realized was a limiting belief and pattern throughout your childhood that you wanted to release?
I think that just being driven by I think like a general sense of being driven by fear, being raised by immigrant parents, like listen, I mean, I tried to get it. Like it must have not been easy, right? Like you moving to a new country with nothing, literally nothing, like to a totally new culture that is not accepting of you, that will not be accepting of you for another 50 years. You know what I mean? Like I get it. Like it was a hard time. And maybe those that fear driven motive served our parents or grandparents at a certain point and like that's what helped them to survive,
Mhm.
but it's not the case anymore.
Mhm.
um but I think that mentality for my family is something that really was passed on generation to generation and drove a lot of like motivated them to make certain decisions in their lives, financially, in terms of family, every decision.
Mhm.
And it takes awareness to realize that like it's happening over and over, um, to like identify the shitty patterns to really make the change.
Yeah, and sometimes you need that really destructive tower moment when everything is taken from you, when you are experiencing loss. And I don't know why humans need to learn this way. It's almost like a shock to the system to make you see and start doing that work. I wish it didn't take that for us to be aware, but for some
Mhm.
reason it's what it takes. Because
But
I
a lot of times people will also like experience loss and not,
yes,
they
hmm,
still will not become aware.
yeah, yeah. But my hope is that because I even things are quote unquote the new normal, or I can't say back to normal, but a new normal. And I'm hoping that a lot of people learned through this time and did a lot of healing through this time. But even if they didn't, listening to stories like yours will help inspire them to maybe take that time to reflect, like what was the last 3 years all about? What certain things in my life didn't move forward? What did I experience that wasn't savory, but maybe I can start over now? And what were some things that you were telling yourself, or you and your mom were like telling each other when you were starting this business and you had to strap your bootstraps on and say like there's no not certainty, but we believe in this dream?
I think one of the consistent like just internal messages that like messaging that we had back and forth from each other was that we were so in touch with ourselves. Like there was a new sense of like confidence,
Mhm.
right? Where is in our prior business that maybe was generating a lot more than what we're doing today. There was not that sense of internal confidence
Mhm.
because we felt like we were reclaiming like the compass of our lives, if that makes sense.
Yes.
um like I think that especially when it comes to business is one of those things that like you have to approach with a sense of neutrality, right? And if you are naturally not a neutral being, right? If you are someone who is motivated by fear, by other things, then you're not making decisions based on neutrality.
Yeah. We often talk about, well, the, the 3 times I've seen you, or 2 times I've seen you since our first meeting, was that entrepreneurship is like a spiritual journey. It's like a spiritual awakening because you have to constantly check yourself, check your ego, and listen to your intuition. And um, yeah, it's a spiritual journey, really. And I love what you just said about having it be neutral and kind of seeing it from maybe a more neutral place. But at the same time, you were saying before we hit record that your business needs you, it's a part of you. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like something recently I've truly come to realize, like after even becoming pregnant. It's like, I'm gonna raise this child, and one day, like with the goal for it to be an independent human. Um, but with a business, it's like a reflection of yourself and like it puts you in check.
Hmm.
So like if you, I'm trying to think of an example. If it's like a mirror of oneself. Um, and depending on what you put into it, right? Um, the work, the financial support, the emotional support, the foundation, the team that drives a business, those are all dependent on its success.
Mhm.
And if you're making like business decisions for um that are completely revenue driven or um like personally driven, then that's a result that you're going to see because it is a mirror.
Yeah, which which is the question that I wanted to ask because we do live in late stage capitalism, and the amount of work you put in, it's like an ROI, right? Like you receive what you put, you receive. So how have you reframed that now with honoring yourself and honoring your message and also like fostering a community within your employees? I know that's one thing you said was very important to you, but also making decisions out of creativity and love versus fear and we have to make money. How do you balance
Yeah.
all that?
Well, I think that like first and foremost, it comes from within. So the days that I'm feeling unwell mentally and I'm working, I'm trying to get through my menial tasks, they're also ending up unwell,
Mhm.
or the results of them are not at their best. So I see that like the personal work that I have to do every day is absolutely necessary for me to lead and conduct my business and my team. Because if I am unwell mentally or I'm struggling um in some sense, like that energy is so easily picked up by the rest of my team and by my business.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, hearing your story makes so much sense now about your clothing brand. Um, and Stephanie is the founder of Find Me Now, which is such a beautiful name because I feel like now I understand what that means, hearing your story. And your clothing line has spiritual cosmic undertones. Um, and I just love how colorful and how like fun it makes me feel. Talk more about your brand. Like, what's your creative process? Is there something that your mom or your team designs that you're just like, no?
I mean, all the time. We're a team, right? So we work collaboratively. I'm super open with my team. So like everyone has a say and like we make space and like I want to hear um everyone's thoughts. And I think that is mostly because I mean, number one, if we can't be behind our own product, how are we supposed to convince anyone else? But we like to develop collections that are energy centric. So our spring collection that just launched, we were focusing on the energy of softness. Um, and that the idea of softness is not one that is is not one that can weaken
Mhm.
oneself and not one that can be present without strength. So I think as a entrepreneur for so many years, I have myself struggled with the idea and the energy of softness. Um, and I think that like always being in a very strategic mindset, it doesn't make so much room for softness. But I've truly like been able to overcome and come to love on my own softness,
Mhm.
and realize that it's also a like level of strength.
It is.
It
I feel,
really is.
yeah, I feel like, we're joking around about our Korean heritage, and we come from a heritage of an ancestry of very fierce women because they had to be. And I think as like a coat of armor, I've always not been into being soft, or I didn't want people to think I was soft. But there is,
Because it's attached to like vulnerability,
yes,
yeah,
and
weakness.
yes, and I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be stepped on. But what you're saying is something that I am really investigating now. Like, um, the feminine and yin and softness is not less than, it's just different ways of being.
Right. Yeah, and I think that concept within itself, like um just generalizing and, using discernment over judging, especially like energy levels, um, that two things can exist at once. It is possible.
Yes. And so, do you come up with the energy first? Like, this is the theme we're going,
Yes.
feeling, and then you come up with like the colors and the motifs, and then you design around that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
amazing.
it always starts with like the energy frequency, like where we're at as a team.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And do you find that as a team, I don't know if you like did human design or astrology, like you all like have similar placements? Like, how did you figure that out?
I'm not super, I do believe in a well-rounded, like balanced team, but in my interview process, I don't ask them what their three signs are, but it is really important for me to get a sense of one's personality, like when I'm interviewing, um, just to make sure that we are well-rounded. But I think one of the most important qualities when I'm looking to add core team members is like a sense of introspectiveness,
Hmm.
um, which is something that we all have as a team. And someone, I think that I would struggle to nurture a team member who is super surface level,
Hmm.
um, and was not in touch with themselves, or just didn't have the desire at all to become aware. I'm not saying that like we all have to be perfect and like at this um like frequency of love and above all the time, but like just a sense of knowing
Yeah.
that you want to get there,
Hmm.
I think is so important.
And a
Definitely.
willingness. Um,
Yeah, a
and
willingness.
honestly, like, people are always like, Laura, you can't judge people. Everyone's on their own journey. And I say I can judge because it's the year 2023. And I just feel like the only person you're responsible for is yourself. And if you
Hmm.
cannot take a moment to reflect on yourself and how maybe you've caused harm to others, or um,
How
like,
you make others feel
yes, and have self
and how
awareness.
you make yourself feel.
Yes. Just self-awareness and like the
Mm,
willingness to figure it out is all we're asking for.
yeah,
I feel like that just makes a huge difference. But I feel
huge.
like this year specifically is the beginning of, I believe, a huge wave of entrepreneurship because of, the astrological alignments. But I think with
Mm.
AI and things becoming more and more automated, that the corporations are not going to need people per se, so the people are going to then start their own businesses, do their own thing,
And create,
and
yeah.
create their own thing based on their own, what you were saying, like authenticity, based on what's within you. And um, so I think it's super powerful that there's those of us out there who've already done that to kind of be the way showers of like, this was my process, this is what I did. Is there something that you would tell Stephanie like 5 years ago, or even, you just started your label, so like 2 years ago, what you know now to keep her going?
I think, oh my God, there's so many things, Laura.
You could say all the wisdom you want.
There's so many things. Um, but I think one of the most important principles is learning and really fully accepting that nothing is forever and we are in a constant state of impermanence and things are changing and it's something that should not be feared. It's something that should be embraced and that we should just ride and flow and know that it is a state of evolvement. Um, and if you are in touch with that flow and that process, it's this but better. It's this or better.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. It's also the concept of like detachment almost, or non-attachment.
Totally.
Yeah. And I loved how you said that too, because it's a constant reminder that when something great is going to happen, it's like really relish in that moment because it might not last. But then when something shitty is happening to you, it's not going to last.
Everything is temporary, right? Everything is temporary.
Yeah.
And the
Um,
more we like um are attached to things, like the more it just like brings us down.
mhm. Yeah. What are some of your um, spiritual practices? Because you said just a moment ago how you need to like be in tune with yourself before you can,
Mm.
show up to your business.
So I meditate every morning for 15 to 20 minutes. And I know it doesn't sound long, but it is. For anyone who practices meditation, not on a professional level, knows that sitting in stillness and doing breath work for 15 to 20 minutes is a long time.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll spend 10 minutes just like trying to get into it and trying to contain um, my mind and really getting in touch with the breath. So that's like one, number one. And I speak to a soul coach
Mhm.
regularly, twice a month.
Mhm.
And what are my
Like
other
a therapist,
spiritual
like a therapist for your soul.
similar? Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, what are some other things that I practiced? A lot of smudging,
Mhm.
but I feel like this has just become like a normal part of my
Yeah,
everyday.
it's just how you live.
Yeah, it's just like how I live.
Yeah.
Um, what else? Prior to getting pregnant, um, I do think that like a good shroom
Mhm.
trip is just so healing for the soul.
Mhm. Some psilocybin, you mean?
Yeah,
I forget how to pronounce it. Is it ethnogens? It's like
I
the
don't know.
medicine of mushrooms. Yeah. It's like the scientific name.
Yeah, I just think it's so healing and so powerful.
Hmm. Oh yeah, totally. You feel like well, I feel like I'm connected to Earth in such a different way.
Literally,
Yeah,
literally, yeah.
yeah. And you're having a baby, like you said. You're just
I
birthing
know.
things.
I know.
Birthing businesses and a baby. How do you feel?
No. I've definitely come, I've definitely hit like different phases in my pregnancy. But I am in just total awe of my body and like this crazy feminine soft thing is just doing on its own,
Mhm.
like without anyone teaching it, showing it what to do. It's just like doing its thing. And I just am trying to love on her, my
Mm,
body as much as possible because it's just like working so hard.
mhm. Like you're growing a human being. Like I just
I know.
can not think of anything more magical and just like a mind trip.
I know when I really, really think about it, I like go through a mind trip.
Yeah, my cousin is also pregnant. She's expecting her baby in May, so probably the same around the same time as you. And she was just like, "I'm so gigantic. I'm so big." I'm like,
I
you're growing a tiny human. Calm down. I was
know.
like,
That's how I feel. That's how I feel. But then I look at my body and I'm like, I was like, you did this on your own? I'm like, my yeah, so I gotta love on her. I gotta love on my body
yeah,
and cheer it on. I
yes.
talk about it as if it's like a detached of me. I'm like, it's just doing this thing on its own.
I mean, but some people might have been detached from their bodies, for a long time until something is actually growing or activated.
Yeah,
That's such a
definitely.
cool thing. Was there anything I didn't ask that you would like to share?
Trying to think. I think you covered everything.
I did. Like, first of all, you should be a speaker. Has anybody ever said that to you? You have very calming
No.
voice, and it's very like thoughtful and intentional. And I just so appreciate you taking the time to share your story. And I just have this like um, even more affinity towards you because like just sharing
Oh,
your story and being so open and vulnerable. So thank you so much.
of course, anytime. And um, I'm following you all the time, Laura, and like the way that you touch on different energy frequencies, I love it.
Thank you.